I can't believe I've been playing Genshin Impact for a year. Words I never thought I'd ever say. Because this is not my first time with Genshin. This is my second time picking it up. But it is the longest I've spent with the game. I was a day one player, or at least pretty early within the week of release. Played through Mondstadt, played through the first chunk of Leeway. I'm pretty sure the story ended after the child boss fight. Bricked my account, pulling for Klee, thought the game was greedy, and quit. I did come back for a little bit when Dragonspine came out, got my 5-star Chi-Chi, and quit again. So it's been about from Dragonspine to Natlan that I haven't played. But after Zenless came out and got its hooks in me, I figured, why not give Genshin another shot? Coming back was a lot easier this time around. There's way more information on how to build your account, how to build your characters, and who to pull for. Natlan was about to come out, and I had no clue what to do. So YouTube was a very useful tool here. Kind of got a feel for who to pull for and what I wanted to do. I didn't really understand most of it. I just did what the videos said to do. The main goal here was to 36-star the Abyss at some point. No money spent. Just doing what I can with what I get. Going through the main story again, I would have to say, and I would love to start with a positive, but I'm kind of going to be going over all of the areas after this, so I kind of have to put it up front first. The story is really bad. I'm kind of clumping it all together, having caught up to the current patch, but the pace at which the main story moves at is unbearable. The traveler goes to a new region, has to help everyone else with their problems. We usually get a bit of region or world lore in the main story, and the traveler's specific story does not move forward until Dainzelif shows up. It sucks. The main plot moves way too slow to keep me interested. I've heard Nodcry is a story catch-up patch. I haven't looked too much into it, but I've kind of lost a lot of interest. Something crazy is going to happen to get me back on board. Up front, Genshin offers a lot of value as a free-to-play game. New players have a ton to do while catching up to the current patch. The current amount of in-game rewards allows you to pull for quite a few 5-star units, even with lost 50/50s. Now, getting these rewards is another story. Mondstadt and Leeway are pretty inoffensive areas. It's the start of the game, an opening area, pretty standard stuff for introductions, and you really get a feel for the Breath of the Wild inspiration. There's a lot of wide open areas to explore and climb around, and a decent amount of uniquely designed map sections found in these two zones. Inazuma, I think, is a step down. I found the area pretty annoying. Using the boat they give you for this area didn't feel great. There were a lot of small islands to go around to, but the boat didn't really do much, so I question why it was added, aside from marketing it as new traversal to build hype for a nothing feature. The open world puzzles here also weren't great. The building the electric line and the compass puzzles were nice, but the electric bubbles were dumb. These puzzles being tied to the treasure emblem progression, which was added during this patch, just added to needless backtracking. But the introduction to the emblem progression reward was nice to see. It looped the exploration into a nice reward system. But the old side quests that take actual real-life days to complete are dumb. These should have been patched to work with the in-game clock. No reason not to do this with old content, unless they did and I just didn't try. It makes sense when this stuff is current content, but for catching up, it seems pointless. The story here actually did give us our first hype moment. I wish these moments were not so few and far between, but besides that, I don't even remember what was main story relevant in Inazuma. Sumeru was next, and having played through all/most of Sumeru at this point, I am confident in saying it's the worst exploration area to date. The main story was actually pretty interesting with the looping time and the Wanderer stuff, Again, this is more character and world lore rather than Traveler's main story. We only got the main story progression at the very end. A questline that was not so cool was the Aranara questline, which was actually rancid. At least from my perspective of playing it all to catch up to date, it might have been fine while Sumeru was the current patch, but this needed to be shortened. The desert area was also not great. Wide open areas on top and confusing interconnected ruins underneath, which also require higher levels of access to even go into, which just makes it worse. If you're going to have different levels and layers and access points, the quest tracking needs to be way better. I think I spent almost a whole month just in Sumeru. And if I ever lost my account and had to start from scratch, I wouldn't bother picking up Genshin again. This area is that bad. Now, Fontaine is a weird one for me because we have the main story mostly focusing on this region's characters again, which is fine, but at this point, I don't really care anymore. But the exploration part of Fontaine is the best so far. They give you nice chunks of land to explore, not much climbing, just a lot of running around, but it feels a bit more condensed than past areas. The water separating them isn't too massive or require a stupid boat. Fontaine also has underwater areas to explore with its own unique movement and combat. Did they just take the worst world of Kingdom Hearts 1 and put it in their game? Yes, but the simplified combat makes it honestly more fun than Atlantica. It was reminding me of something I didn't like so much, but was kind of having fun. At this point, I'm starting to take notes on Genshin's inspirations. The main story definitely had Phoenix Wright inspirations with the clue and deduction system. I wasn't paying attention, so I just tried every combo. And I think they were also inspired by Prison Simulator, because they trap you in one and it really feels like you're doing hard time. The actual lowest point in Genshin, lower than the Aranara questline. Which brings us to Natlan. The newest region at the point of writing this probably won't be by the time this is out, and I have to say, Natlan is okay. I know this area brought quite a lot of gripes from players, and now having spent a year with the game, I kind of understand it more. But this is where the game essentially was when I started playing Genshin again. As a new / returning player, the Natlan characters all looked really good, and I knew I wanted to pull for them. I really liked the Night Soul mechanic. It allows the characters to be a little more active than the rest of the cast, who pretty much boil down to press 2 buttons, then swap. Night Soul isn't much more than that, but there's just a bit more meat on the bone here. Pulling for a majority of these characters, I rarely had to use the Saurians to travel. If for whatever reason you didn't want to pull for the Natlan characters, it probably made Natlan a nightmare. Probably maybe to Sumeru levels. So I understand people being upset at better mobility being locked behind the gacha. If the Saurians controlled better and were preferred over the characters, I don't think it would have been a big issue. It's kind of a nasty can of worms since the character's mobility is still usable in other areas, just with greatly reduced effect. Night Soul also being the preferred buff in the endgame modes and events was another gripe I heard. Moving away from generic or even more specific elemental reactions for something only a few characters actually have access to was a sign of greed. I think when you start to push spending money to have fun in your game, you're going to start to lose player retention. I was fortunate to be rolling around in new player rewards, so I was benefiting from this. But if you weren't pulling, you were just fighting an uphill battle. I think Natlan is my second favorite area. Exploration problems aside, I think it had great environments, great music. Capitano was the most engaging character in the story so far. Honestly, was the real main character of Genshin. We got the next best hype moment with Mavwika versus Capitano, and I just really ended up liking the Natlan crew. I had to pull for Moalani on her rerun. I needed a Hydro main DPS, and she has the same voice actor as my favorite video game mascot character, Lappy the dog from Astral Chains.
I am Lappy.
I find Genshin very frustrating now. The game doesn't explain much to you, and YouTube videos just tell you what to do with little to no reason as to why, besides saying stuff like X character scales with X stat. I only just realized now why you usually want a character's element percent on an artifact. It's so the scaling stat can roll as a substat to essentially double dip. It might have been obvious, but when you're just following videos, you're not really thinking about it. The story is also just not moving at a good pace. If I was given complete creative control over the story and could rewrite it, I would have had the Traveler sibling story wrap up in Sumeru, move on to the Fatui Gnosis story arc, and that would end in like Natlan and then maybe conclude in Snezhnaya. Nodcry would not even be in the equation at this point. Then do like the Heavenly Principle story, Who's Paimon story, which I know we're getting close to that. But this whole time, there's no one else like Paimon, and nobody seems to question it. It should take like a year or two to wrap up a story arc. And not just a drip feed of all of it, all over the place to varying levels per year. And Zenless almost has the same problem, where the story mostly revolves around the new gacha characters, but Bell and Wise are like dark web vigilantes for hire. And through working with all these people, we learn more about the world, we get more bits and clues towards our main character's story. The Travelers, on the other hand, go from region to region, helping each new cast of characters with their problems, with none of them helping us back in return. Like, I'm not even from here, but I gotta sit here on jury duty and help you? I'm the poorest guy in Genshin Impact and nobody's helping me. Working with the new cast of characters each patch in Zenless helps build interest with the world, drops clues and hints towards coming events or characters. It's still slow and kind of bad, but I can at least see what they're doing. The story and characters in Genshin is like a brick wall until that last patch of the version drops, and then you get a couple hours with Dainsleif. And maybe I didn't explain it great, but this is how I currently feel. And you might be thinking, this guy just wants hype moments and flashy fights, but I really like Capitano's story. They introduced him, we got his backstory, his morals, his motivations, and then we got a conclusion. And that was like, in what, 5.2, 5.3? Within like 6 months of Natlan dropping. I just want a story that has some payoff and doesn't waste my time. If MMOs can wrap up their expansion stories in a year or two, live service gacha games should be able to do the same. But with all that said, Oyo does do a good job at keeping the consistent login experience good. The variety and quantity of limited time events, I feel, is just right. There's a couple of annoying ones every now and again. For a majority of the time, it's quick to log in, spend your resin, and log out. Only having experienced the game's launch and Natlan while they were relevant, when a new version drops, it does bring a lot of fun back to the game. You're going into the world, exploring and collecting rewards, because past this point, you're pretty much just going to fast travel around. The gameplay is still good. Yes, the combat is simpler than Wuthering Waves. Genshin pretty much boils down to 1-2 buttons and swap, but that's not a bad thing. And the more you build up your account, the team building aspect of the game becomes more fun to play around with. Some of the endgame modes are not tuned great. Imaginarium Theater requires a lot of horizontal investment. Even with a year into the game, I can maybe clear the hard difficulty, but I won't be getting all the stars. The new Stygian Abyss is way more tuned towards vertical investment and high stat artifacts. I can beat it on hard in like 20 seconds, but can hardly do any damage on the next difficulty up. And getting good artifacts is all luck based, so I'm pretty much capped on what I can do here. Speaking of artifacts, I think the artifact system is the biggest deterrent for Genshin. Having these modes where you have to have a lot of characters built, or at least semi-competently built, makes it very frustrating when you're limited on how much you can farm for in a day. Reroll and crafting elixirs should be given out like candy, and not like, ooh, you only get 2 every month and a half. Don't waste this. Yes, I know there's the lockbox, and maybe because I was trying to build Natlan characters and that set not being available until 6.0 is the reason I was having so much trouble, but that's also kind of a part of the problem. What am I farming better gear for anyways? Resources that could just end up being wasted? If you want these materials to be limited and rare, it should be the opposite of what I just said, and artifacts should drop all over the place and not be limited to stamina. And I mean real 5-star artifacts, not the dinky ones that already drop. Genshin is also pushing me to pull for dupes so I can clear harder content. And it's not even harder content. They just made the numbers bigger and tied it to a clock. The only mode that is balanced is the Abyss. And yes, it took me a year, but I got 36 stars. And I had to pull for pretty much every ace character in 5.0. It's like I'm living in a cycle of unlimited rewards and no rewards. And this is why Genshin is on the chopping block for me. I said I was very much likely going to stick with Zenless, but the artifact system and drip feed of rewards and materials, and even the rate at which characters are reran or launched, is why Genshin is on the chopping block. This could just be a new player / returning player problem, and MiHoYo just has not thought about the new player experience as much. I still think Genshin is a high value free-to-play game. Tons to do and explore up front. Maybe you'll get more out of the story than I did. I like stories that have an eventual payoff and not ones that never get there. The more time you spend in the daily grind, the worse the game gets. And I don't mean the daily login experience gets worse when there's events and that stuff is going on. It's fun. I'm talking more of the material and artifact farming. The endgame modes are pushing you to either spend money on pulling more characters or duplicates. They waste your time with random chance loot, while providing you with extremely limited materials to craft better gear. That still might not help. The open world, the story, the events, all make you feel like you're playing a game. The endgame grind just feels like a waste of time. When you start to not care about the rewards, you start to not care about playing. And I'm just about there. I'm gonna keep playing for now, but I'm very likely to drop if no major changes to building stronger teams isn't implemented. And I'm not saying all this because I prefer Weathering Waves over Genshin. I don't have any brand loyalty like that. It's not like Kuro Games is gonna mail me a pot of gold for talking down to Genshin Impact. And I'm taking notes on Weathering Waves. Don't you worry about that. And you'll definitely hear about it on the 1-year review of Weathering Waves, if not sooner. The difference is I'm hopeful Kuro Games will listen to the feedback they get and make good changes. If you like Genshin, and Genshin is your favorite game, I would probably agree with you on some things. But obviously we are not the same person. You might be playing it for other reasons and are getting more enjoyment out of it. I'm not getting out of the game what I want at this point, and from what I've seen, it's only a matter of time before I drop it. Welcome back to the end of the video. If you made it, thank you so much. Ended up talking way more about Genshin than I wanted to and still left stuff out. I might go back through it and add some points. But if you like the video, leave a like, leave a comment if you want to ask a question or whatever, and subscribe. The Zenless video did way better than I thought it would. So this one probably won't. I'm a little more critical of Genshin. Also, if you're on mobile, apparently Hype, you can Hype now. You get 3 a week. I'd love to get a Hype on this video. And it scales, so like you're getting max value. Next video is obvious. I kind of jumped to a couple different projects, so this kind of got put on the sidelines, and then I started working on it again, and then I swapped to a different project. Thanks again if you made it here. I will get another one out as soon as I can.